Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Unreal Engine 4 live stream. I'm Dana Cowley, and with me is Michael Noland and Mike Fricker.
Hey.
We're excited to have you guys here today. As you know, we just released Unreal Engine 4.3 yesterday, more than 500 updates. We've been talking a lot about those features over the past few weeks, trying to give you guys as much of a preview as we can. But we know there's a lot more that we still need to tell you about so that you understand everything that we've packed into this release. So we're going to go over some of that today. Michael's going to show you a little bit of Paper 2D in action. Mike's going to walk through the notes and call out some points that we really think you ought to know about. And then towards the end, I'm going to walk through some community and marketing and swag type stuff, like questions that we commonly get a lot on the social channels, so that everybody's kind of up to speed with what's happening in terms of how we can help you promote your game, how to use our logo in your game, how you can get your hands on an Unreal Engine t-shirt maybe, but just, general things that people want to know. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to you guys, and let's take a look at 4.3.
Okay, sure. Cool. Yeah, I think I also wanted to highlight that, just basically thank you guys for contributing back to us. We got a good number of pull requests, and I think 33 features and bug fixes from the community made it into 4.3, which I think is pretty fantastic. So yeah, keep sending that stuff. Like it's great, right? We love that.
Yep.
Yeah. So like Dana said, we're going to talk about some of the 4.3 stuff that we didn't go into enough detail before, or there's kind of little things that maybe we didn't even realize were going to be in the release until the last second, or just didn't have the opportunity to highlight in the release notes very well. And then probably we'll also talk about some forward-looking stuff too if we have time. So the first thing I wanted to call out, I know we talked about this a bit a few weeks ago, but just that this is the first version of Unreal Engine where you can plug in your iPhone on a PC platform and deploy your content-only project to your device. I guess probably you know more about this than I do, given you work with it every day. But
So yeah, this is a workflow that we've used internally for a long time, but it wasn't really production ready in the past. So Peter Sauerbrey has been working a lot on making this workflow a lot easier to use and a lot more robust, and we're going to continue to improve it in future releases as well. So look forward to that. We also hope to get it easier to do C++ projects on iOS. You'll still have to have a Mac to compile the C++ stuff, but we have a remote communication mechanism where it'll upload your source code to the Mac, build it, and then pull the build products back, and so you can still test and iterate on your PC.
Yeah, we've been working that way here for years and years, right? So it works really well, but we still want to empower as many people as possible to be able to build on and deploy to iOS without having to deal with multiple computers and even own a Mac, ideally. So.
Yeah, I mean, you still have to use a Mac to submit it to the App Store. Like the actual upload application to upload it to iTunes is Mac only, and so that'll always be required. But the idea is you'll be able to, iterate on your game on a day-to-day basis without having to copy it over to the Mac or anything.
And how do you set up your provisioning and stuff? Is it the same? It works a little differently on PC, right?
Yeah, it works a little bit differently on PC. You still use iPhone Packager, kind of in the same workflow that we had back in UDK, in order to generate a certificate signing request, which you upload to Apple to get a certificate, and then generate a provisioning profile. And so you install those on your PC, and then you'll be able to sign an app to actually install it on the device. That workflow is still very early days yet, and so it's going to feel much better in future releases as well. We're also trying to make it work more like how Xcode works on the Mac, so that in terms of documentation, just how it finds provisioning profiles and stuff, there's less sort of hidden magic there, and it works the same as if you're working on a Mac, so you can transition your workflows back and forth.
Cool. So another thing we want to call out is that we have some partners that we kind of want to congratulate, because the SpeedTree guys have integrated SpeedTree support into Unreal Engine 4. So with 4.3, you can import SpeedTree models like SRT files into the content browser like you would FBX file, and they'll display and render in game. I think they work very much like static meshes from a workflow point of view, but they have full SpeedTree LED support and all of the cool bits that you get with SpeedTree. And I believe SpeedTree.com has some free models that you can just grab and import them right into UB4 already, which is pretty sweet. And hopefully I think we'll see more of that stuff in the future available through our marketplace too. And the other one, we want to congratulate Substance team because Substance released their plugin for 4.3 yesterday, I believe. So they linked to it on the forums, but Substance, if you're not aware, is I guess you call it like a procedural material design tool.
Yeah.
And it lets you, I guess, like have dynamic textures in your game or just easily author textures from a variety of dynamic sources. So you can now use those in the engine. So yeah, grab their plugin. I think like we also are planning to have some content from Substance on the marketplace too.
You'll hear a lot more about that in the next couple of weeks. They've been working hard on a couple of sample scenes for the past few months. One's a little bit smaller in scale and one's huge. So it's really cool stuff. Go ahead and get the plugin, try it out. There will be a lot more goodies for you to see soon.
Yep.
Yeah.
And yeah, with 4.3, the plugin now doesn't require any engine modifications. You can use it directly with the launcher version. You just grab the plugin, unzip it into the engine directory, and it just starts working.
Your game project.
Oh,
directory.
game project directory. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it should be. We're still kind of learning how plugins will end up working with UE4. Like we have a bunch of them out there now, but it's something that we know is still a work in progress. So they're evolving every release, but we want to make them really easy for you to just drop in and use.
Yep.
And speaking of that stuff, like once we get assets from Substance or assets from Epic that we want to put on the marketplace for you guys to download and hook up to your project very easily, you're going to see some new workflows appear in the launcher. And some of this is already implemented. We're just waiting to deliver the content to you. But the idea is that you'll be able to basically just download assets from the marketplace, and they'll land in your vault. And you'll be able to install them into any project that you have that's compatible with that version of the assets. And they'll basically just drop those assets right inside your game project, and you can start using them immediately. So this functionality is completed and still in testing, but you'll be seeing hopefully some assets like that appear on the store not too long from now.
Yep.
Yeah, we really want to get that going.
And that's sort of the vision we're looking for long term is, a really robust way to, deliver assets where, you've got a copy that you can install into multiple game projects, and, updates will update to that copy first so that they don't clobber into your individual project. If somebody updates an asset pack, it doesn't break your game. You have the choice of, do I want to update this particular project or not, and things like that.
Yeah, someday we'll have to get the launcher guys on the stream and talk about some of this cool stuff they're planning, because it's pretty cool. Some other stuff, I was going through the releases and I realized like we have multi-line text support now, which is actually has been requested for a long time as one of the more upvoted features that we've seen. So that's in there for Slate, and by extension will be available in UMG when Unreal Motion Graphics is ready to try out. Unreal Motion Graphics has been making really good progress too. It's still not ready to be even used experimentally yet, really, but if you want to mess around with it, you can grab the GitHub build, or I think you can enable it even in the binary build with.
Yeah, I think it's an
-UMG.
experimental setting now. Yeah. I think they actually.
In 4.3? No. I don't think-
Maybe that's for 4.4.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in the next release, it will probably graduate to experimental state, but for now, if you want to try it out, I think you run with the -UMG command line option.
Right. But it's something. If you want to sort of see the direction we're heading in, you can play with it, but don't build any content that you want to keep. Like it's still in heavy flux right now, so
Yeah.
they haven't quite got to the point where they're committing to backwards and forwards compatibility
But
over time.
please check it out and give us feedback. There's a forum thread, and you'll see the engineers who are working on it very heavily. They would love to have your feedback, so get on there.
Definitely.
Check it out if you can. 4.3 also had like new Oculus technology. We updated to the latest SDK, which has like time warping, faster rendering path, better DK2 support, which is the new version of Oculus that includes 6-degree of freedom, kind of motion tracking, like head tracking and stuff like that.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool.
The Couch Nights demo.
Oh, yeah.
So you can play with
God.
that.
Forgot about that.
Yeah.
Actually, I mean,
Because
have we
actually-
talked about that? Have we shown that before?
I don't know. When we had Nick Whiting
Yeah.
on, we didn't actually have everything loaded up,
Oh,
so we
okay.
haven't showed.
Well-
I mean, you can Jason, you can cut to the screenshot of it. You can show Couch Nights. We've got it pulled up over here. This was
pretty cool.
the demo that we first created for Oculus. I think it was it CES or GDC this year? Maybe it was GDC. That was the first time it was shown.
I think Couch Nights was for GDC.
Yeah, GDC. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
CES was you were sitting.
That
like
was
you were
the
knight
modified
sitting at, like, the
strategy and
chessboard
elemental.
kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yep. That's right.
It's kind of just a cool VR example that's very meta, where
Yeah,
Very
it's-
meta.
you
yeah.
possess yourself in the virtual world holding a joystick, sitting on a couch, playing a game in the physical world.
With
which
someone
is
else
actually-
who possesses a joystick.
Right,
Weird
and it's
themselves.
multiplayer.
Yes.
So
Well, another thing is it's built entirely in Blueprints, so you can actually check out how to do a multiplayer game in Blueprints with this as well, even if you don't have a DK2.
oh yeah,
Yep.
great point.
Yep.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. That was entirely blueprints.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, so check that out. And I also want to mention that we have the in-editor credits, which I'm very excited about too. Gives you guys credit for everything you submit to us. We're just going to keep. If you give something to us and it ends up being reviewed and submitted into the engine, like your name will be on the engine forever, right? Like we're going to do that. So you can see the credits viewer in the new version of in 4.3, and we'll probably continue to improve it. If you want your name, spelled a certain way or something, just let us know and we'll tweak it. We just kind of grab the names from GitHub or from the forums or whatever we had, but it's no problem for us to tweak that.
Yeah, and if we missed you, please let us know.
Yeah, we missed one person, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So we're getting that fixed up. But we try to be as careful with that as we can, but it all comes together so quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll fix it very quickly, too.
Yep.
Cool. Trying to think, I guess, any other 4.3 stuff we want to talk about?
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about Paper 2D later.
Oh, yeah.
Paper 2D.
We can do that when we switch over to the
Oh,
demo.
I want to mention kind of just a little quick discussion about our strategy for backwards compatibility in projects, because I see it coming up every time we release a new version, just how do we update. And, I saw Rama had a forum thread about helping people get updated, and that's really great. We appreciate that. And we try to include much information about API breaking changes in the release notes as possible, but we also understand that it's a lot to read through, and ideally, you're not having to go and deal with that every single time you update. So we're really trying to figure out how to be more backwards compatible between versions. Mainly this affects code-based projects, C++, because Blueprint projects are a little more resilient. Well, I'd say a lot more resilient.
Yeah, well, we've got a lot of built-in features for how to make a breaking API change in C++, but then have the Blueprint automatically fix itself up on load, which they're already documented, but we could probably do with actually a blog post would be a really good idea for that.
I
Just
think
to
so
talk
too.
about both C++ and Blueprint ways we have to make a breaking change and migrate it, because that's true for game projects too. You may make a change to your game API if you have a mixed C++ and blueprints, and you don't want to have to go redo all your blueprints to accommodate that.
Yeah. So it's very important to me and the rest of the team. We don't want you to get the new version and try to load your project and have this frustrating kind of rage quit moment where you just are, hammered with a bunch of errors that you don't understand and just don't feel motivated to update your project. That would be horrible. So we want to make sure that we can be as backwards compatible as possible, but we also just honestly, we don't want to paralyze our engineers. We need to change the engine and continue improving the engine. So it's kind of a tricky balance there. So where we're going toward is at least trying to maintain code and content compatibility for at least between the current major version and the subsequent major version. And then we'll still continue to deprecate functionality, but hopefully we can deprecate it in such a way that it's just very obvious to you that in the next release, or maybe a subsequent release after that, you'll have to have the switch to the newer version of the API, or switch to the new Blueprint function that's available to use.
Yeah, so we've got things like C++ deprecated macro that we're using now, so that you'll get a compiler warning saying, hey, this still compiles today in this version, but in the next version it won't compile. So we're sort of forecasting that so that, if you're updating every single version, you'll sort of have a forewarning before it actually goes away properly. But that's new for us, so there were at least a few changes made in 4.3 where we didn't use that when we could have.
Yep.
So we're getting there.
We're still learning, and we'd love to hear your feedback about this stuff. Just chime in on the forums, and it'll just be a discussion. We'll try to. We want to make it work whatever you guys need to work as far as project upgrades go, but we like to move quickly, and we don't want to inhibit that either. So it's finding that balance. But just please be aware that it's very important to us, and we're working on it. Every version, we're trying to get a little bit better at it. Mm-hmm. Cool.
Do we want to hit on a couple other things real quick? Like the Substance plugin. Do we have their page pulled up here?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, cool.
Just switch over to this.
Let's cut over to that, Jason. Thanks. Yep. So if you want to know
Yeah,
where to find it, there it is.
Yeah, it's on Algorithmic's website, so you can just go to substance-UE4 on top of it. I think it's probably linked from their top page too.
Yeah.
Cool.
All
Yep.
right, and then the next one, what do we have there?
So
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
this is another one that I don't think it's available yet, but it's something that Side Effects, who make Houdini, have announced they're working on making an integration of the Houdini engine into Unreal Engine 4.
awesome.
And so we're really excited about that. Like, Houdini is really powerful software, and they included a picture. So I'm not sure, there wasn't context on this picture, but I think it's basically a parametric spaceship. So like you can just adjust these parameters over here, and it'll adjust like the length and width of the wings and so on and so forth. And you just see it updating live right in the viewport. So that should be really interesting.
Houdini can do a lot of different powerful things. Like, it's very, very impressive piece of software. So it's cool that they're doing an integration.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um,
And then this was just published today. So Josh Adams wrote up a little bit of a walkthrough on metal rendering and what's included so far in 4.3. So this is up on the wiki. Definitely check that out if you're interested in metal.
I guess like if people aren't familiar with Metal, it's Apple's.
Yeah, it's your new API for iOS 8. It's still kind of in beta, but it's obviously very high performance in a way that hasn't been done on mobile before.
Yeah, so you have access to everything we have now in 4.3. It's still a work in progress, but I mean, we demoed it, it worked.
Yep.
Yep.
And so because Apple has not released a final out-of-beta driver, you do have to use the GitHub source code right now to enable Metal. But basically, you can just pull down the GitHub source code, compile, and if you have one of the iOS 8 betas installed, and then you'll get additional options. And so you can just go into your cooker settings and enable support for Metal. And then when that binary is running on an iOS 8 device that has an A7, it'll enable itself and use Metal instead of ES2.
Cool.
Very cool. And if we could just hit on really quickly those two tutorials.
Sure.
Tesla Dev, thank you very much for releasing the very first Paper 2D. Well, one of the first Paper 2D tutorials.
Yeah, I think Mamioium, or I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing
Yeah,
that right,
Min
had also
Alien,
done
yeah.
like building a 2D platformer
Yeah,
one as
yeah,
well.
yeah, that's true.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, but this one just hit today, and then the one, he also released a speech read tutorial yesterday, if you hit that tab next to it,
Sure.
Michael.
So let's go a little bit
But yeah, you guys can check out Tesla Dev on YouTube, and on Twitter, he is Tesla_dev. You can follow him there.
Yep.
And then, yeah, there's the speed tree tutorial.
We're going to be using the speed tree modeler for the Unreal Engine 4, and we're going to take a look at how we can add in branches and leaves to a tree by how we do with these branches up here.
Great.
So to do
Yeah,
that,
those are
awesome.
really cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank
So maybe now we can talk about, since we just showed Paper 2D, and that's a feature that is, I think, available now as early access in 4.3.
Right. So Paper 2D is, if you're not familiar with it, is a plugin into Unreal Engine, and we're building as a plugin, even though it's being developed internally, in order to kind of enforce making sure that everything can be extended. So any third party can end up doing things like creating entirely new asset types and things like that, without having to modify any engine source. So in a way, it's both getting us 2D features, but it's also making sure that our engine extensibility works out as planned.
Yeah, we're eating our own dog food.
Yep. So it's been in there for a while, but it's always been totally experimental. Like, you shouldn't really be using it to build a game. But 4.3 marks the first release where we're saying you can actually go in and use sprites and flipbooks and be confident that there aren't going to be breaking changes in the future. There are other aspects in there that are still completely experimental, so like terrain splines and tile maps and sprite atlas support, or cooking sprite atlas support. And so those are the kinds of things that will be improved in the future. But for right now, they're really in there just if you want to have a look at them, but you shouldn't rely on them working exactly the same way in the future. So that ties in. One of the things that we've changed in 4.3 is the ability for any classes to be marked as experimental or early access. And then you'll get warnings in the editor. So like right here, you can see that this uses an early access class. And that's just another way of making it more clear what the state of a feature is. And so, once it's completely, ready with no qualms or caveats, that will go away as well, and it'll just be a regular part of the engine. And so you can get, a little more information about how we define early access and how we define experimental. And so early access is, you can use this. It's just, it may not be fully documented yet, and things may still be in flux. Experimental is here be dragons. Like it could completely change, or it could be deleted entirely out of the engine in the future. So just as a heads up there. So this right here is one of the templates that we ship with 4.3. It's a 2D side scroller template, and it comes in both C++ and Blueprint variants. So, it's just a simple side scroller where, you can run around, you can jump and stuff. So everything in here is a sprite, including the little guy. He was a 3D mesh, but he's been rendered down to a flipbook so that, he's just a series of frames that are being played as animation. And so, you can see you can run around in here, jump on platforms, all that kind of stuff. It runs on mobile as well. I'll show that back when we get to the end of the segment. I'll show it running on an iPad. But that's what you can do right now in PaperDuty at a high level is you can take in textures and you can create sprites from them. So for example, each one of these platforms is a paper sprite actor. So we can go ahead and pull up the editor for one of these and see what a sprite is. So this is the sprite editor. It lets you define properties about a sprite, whether or not there's collision, what the rendering geometry looks like and stuff like that. You don't have to do any of this. Like basically you can just right click on a texture and say create sprite in 4.3, and now you can drag and drop that sprite into the level editor. But you can go in and you can optimize it. So for example, on the render geometry on this one is actually tightly bound so that it's not drawing these transparent pixels in the corner of the texture. But we can flip over to the collision and we can see right now that's not true for the collision. The collision is just a square box. So, if we go back over here and play in the editor, we can see that sort of he hits his head, unnecessarily. So let's go ahead and change that real quick. And just come in here. Tighten that up a little bit. I'm going to spend too much time on this, but
Someone asked if you can add destruction to the mesh in Paper 2D.
not currently. No.
Not yet. Not yet.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. And so now we play. We can see now he sort of, he jumps up a little bit closer and hits his head right on the corner. And so it's real easy to go in and, adjust things. So like if you bring in a 45-degree ramp or something, you can quickly get the collision geometry to match what the texture looks like, that sort of thing. It's a first-class feature of Unreal, and so all of the goodies in Unreal work with it as well. So you can do things like create custom materials and, have the full power of the material editor applied to a sprite. So you can end up doing things like glowing coins or heat distortion on sprites, or any of the neat things that you could do, with like a 3D mesh, you can do onto sprites as well. So if you pull one of these into the editor, we can actually see that a sprite is effectively just a flat mesh, and so you can also go into orthographic mode and edit them there. You can see there. We go back to wireframe. It's just drawn as a series of triangles that are generated from the geometry you edit in the sprite editor.
Very cool. So is this using PhysX for physics?
So currently, you can make any sprite have collision or not have collision. You can define it as 3D collision, no collision, or 2D collision. 2D collision is currently experimental. So this is all using PhysX here, and I can show that real quick. If I can find it.
It's a fourth from the top.
Oh, there we go. So we can actually, I'll go back to perspective. And so you can see it's got this extruded box collision around it, and that's defined over here under the collision geometry. It's got a collision thickness, so we could actually make this 200 or whatever. So now you can see that it's a little bit wider. So you can actually, so collision detection and response all works exactly the same as anything else in Unreal. So you get all the collision channel filtering, object filtering, all that kind of stuff works fine. Collision response, however, if you enable that, so you want to have something that is like physically simulated falling and bouncing and stuff, you can run into issues where it'll, like if it hits a little bit wrong, it can actually rotate out of the plane. And so Ori Cohen is working on adding support for sort of 60 degree of freedom constraints where you can just easily say, hey, I want to clamp things to a plane and stuff like that for 3D physics. And obviously that won't be a problem with 2D physics once it's a little bit further along. We're doing the 2D physics with Box 2D, And so you can actually enable that right now, but again, it's, it's sort of experimental, as you can see. Just warning you. It's still getting there. And then you also have a separate flag that you need to enable if you want to do 2D physics queries. So if you want to do like a ray trace or something like that, because we have both PhysX and Box2D compiled in at the same time, the queries are disabled by default so that 3D games don't get slower trying to look into the 2D query world.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. So maybe you're going to show this, but how do you decide which frame of an animation to play?
Sure. I'll pull up one of the flipbooks now. Oops. So currently we don't have extensive support for animation in Paper 2D. We just have support for flipbook animations, which are simple. I want to play this frame, then this frame, and then this frame. So we can pull in here. So like we can look at this idle animation. And so we can see here it's got, this guy sort of, just standing, wobbling back and forth a little bit. So each one of these here are keyframes. And so you can look at the keyframes and see that each one is basically just a single sprite and then a duration. And so this animation plays at 7.5 frames a second, or 7.5 keyframes a second. So we could actually make him pause on this first frame to make it like, say, 5. And now you can see he sort of takes a pause there, and you can see the link changed here. You can also, drag around here. This is still, very early editor, so you can't do things like drag and drop frames back and forth within here to reorder them. That's something we'll add in the future. However, you can drag from the content browser. You can drag a sprite or another flipbook onto this timeline, and that'll insert all of those frames there.
Cool.
Another thing you can do is if you have Adobe Photoshop or Texture Packer or a couple of other tools like that, you can export a sprite sheet as a JSON sort of manifest file that says, here are all the frames in my animation, and it'll import both the texture and that JSON into the editor and automatically create a flipbook and stuff like that. We've got a little bit of documentation on this on the forums now. That'll be up on the official documentation page, in the coming weeks. We want to improve the animation system so that you can do a lot more with 2D animations, but that's work in progress. So you'll hear more about that in the future. Let's see. Not too much else to show right here in this demo, but it's really easy to go in, tinker around with things, drop stuff in. You can set it up so that you have a texture that you have imported from, say, Photoshop or something. You can draw on that texture, save the file, and turn on the re-import watcher, and then have that automatically re-import back into the engine. And so you can, quickly iterate on artwork and stuff like that in the engine.
Cool. Yeah, nice.
Yep.
That's very cool. So I think now I want to just go ahead and talk about some of the kind of upcoming things that we're doing. Just kind of let you guys know. So first of all, our roadmap's updated. So if you haven't seen it, go to unrealengine.com, and there's a roadmap button. You can kind of see just almost everything that we have lined up for the next couple of months. And we just keep updating that. And you can go there and you can vote on things too, which we actually really enjoy to see what you guys care about most. So check that out. It's fairly freshly updated with new stuff. I mentioned UMG is is coming along very well. It's Unreal Motion Graphics. That's our new UI system that's built on top of Slate. So I'm not going to go too deep on that right now. Something that we released recently was preview builds through the launcher, which it seems like a lot of you really liked, which is really cool. Getting access so conveniently to an upcoming build, even though it hadn't completed QA testing, we were able to get good feedback from you guys even before we released. So that we consider very successful, and so we're looking at how to take that kind of the next level, which is something that we're calling right now unstable builds. Where we'll get you access through the launcher to the latest build that we're using here at work every day. The latest build that has just basically, it compiles and QA has given it kind of a once-over. It's passed some simple smoke testing, and then off to you guys to try too. So that's the same build that our artists would be using here, working on these samples or working on our other games, so that you can try out features basically just as they appear in GitHub. Without having to go and get a snapshot of binaries. Basically a more convenient way to test things out. Of course, with the unstable builds, you're in kind of a tricky situation versioning-wise. So it's a little bit, you want to back up your stuff. Don't go and open your main project and start saving things with an unstable build, because it might be hard to get back on the canonical version timeline if you do that. So when we release the feature, we're going to figure out how to make sure that it's easy to protect you from accidentally not backing up your stuff or saving assets and not being able to open them back with the original version of the editor. So anyways, we're working on that stuff, but we think it'll be pretty fun because you'll be able to get builds just as conveniently as we do here right through the launcher, so should be pretty cool. Some other stuff we're doing, so we started kind of like this cool initiative to just basically a big focus on just kind of small annoying things based off of your feedback and feedback from other artists and teams and level designers, and just kind of fix just little things that make the editor and engine kind of a pain, and also just a general focus on usability and new user learning. And so we're going to be adding new tutorials. We're going to be improving the tutorial system, so you guys will even be able to make your own tutorials using blueprints that will run live in the editor. And they'll be a lot more highly interactive than we were able to do before, which is going to be, I saw kind of a concept of what it will look like, and I think that it's pretty exciting if we can achieve that. So that's something that we're working on too.
Yeah, we want to get to the point where, any tutorial or sample game that either we make or people make and put up into the marketplace will be able to have, just a built-in tutorial right there that walks through potentially how you go from zero to making that tutorial, or making that template. And so it helps tie things together a little bit better, rather than just sort of being spooky magic in, config settings or something like that.
They're not that bad.
No, they're not that
Yeah.
bad, but it's like, if you have to enable some option in the input project settings, it
Totally.
may not be obvious. Like you try and copy the blueprint to another project, but it doesn't work unless
Yeah.
you also have that setting checked. And
Yep.
just being able to talk a little bit more about the motivation for why we built the template the way we did as well.
Yep. Something else with just kind of making things easier or more fun was I saw James Golding sent me a screenshot of work that Ori's doing on sort of an in-editor search tool that will help you get access to all of the tutorials very easily. Get you access to our useful blog posts, documentation, things like YouTube videos. So that we're still working on it, but that should be pretty cool. I think we might actually replace the console that's in the top right of the editor with that and move the console kind of elsewhere, maybe into the viewport tilde menu or something like that,
Yeah.
since we think that the console is kind of a more advanced feature.
We could also make it that you can use the search box to do the console command with
We
like a
might.
slash before it or something
Yeah,
like that.
we might do
some
that.
prefix.
Yep. So, but we kind of want to claim that spot because that seems like a good spot to like look for help. So,
Yep.
we're going to work on that, and we'll make it extensible too, so that you guys can find cool uses for it as well. Because you can imagine that you just search for anything in there. It could be like a menu or tool or an asset or whatever.
Yep.
It could just be like a super search. But this will just be the start of it.
Yeah, speaking of searching for assets, one thing that is in the editor right now, it's not very discoverable, but it's a really useful power user feature,
Oh, yeah.
is Control P. So you can hit Control P, and that'll pop up an asset picker. So you can just hit Control P and then start typing the name of the asset, hit Enter, and it'll select whichever asset matched, in the same way all of our other context menus that have search work. And so that can make it really quick to, like, you just restarted the editor and you want to get back into the blueprint or whatever you were editing before particle system and so
That
forth.
feature's awesome. We should highlight. Is that in the like file menu or anything? We should get it in like a file.
I want to
open-
say that it actually is now.
Doesn't look like it.
Open asset, yeah.
Oh yeah,
It is
okay.
actually
There
there.
you go.
Yep.
So file open asset, but
Just
Control
go
P
back to
is what you really need.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the convenient thing.
And there's a few other ones. Like when I edited the sprite earlier, it was Control E to edit the asset associated with an actor. So you can select a static mesh actor and then hit Control E to edit that. And then last quick one that's really useful is Control B, which will browse and find that. So it's P for pick, E for edit, and B for browse. Just easy
Yep.
to remember.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. It seems like we actually have like a ton of useful shortcuts.
Yeah,
we need to
and
make
sometimes they're a little more hidden than they need to be.
Yeah, it's like kind of the benefit and curse of an engine that has been, UE4 is new, but it inherited all the most useful shortcuts from earlier versions of the engine. So that we have quite a lot of power workflows that are in there. We just need to make sure that
You can actually find them.
yeah, you can find them.
Yep.
Cool. So another thing that we're working on, and I mentioned this probably every time I'm on here, I mention it because I care about it so much, and that's just compile time performance for C++. Something that we're totally working on. I did a big post on the forum yesterday about it, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but something that's a hot topic. We want to make that a lot better. Iteration times in general for programmers. We're also working on hot reload. Hot reload is what we call what's the compile button on the toolbar. So if you're working in a code-based project and you make changes to C++, you can click the compile button on the toolbar right now, and without shutting down the editor, it will try to compile your changes and load them. And I say try because it's not without its caveats right now, but we're looking to sort of eradicate almost all of those caveats and just make it so that you don't even have to use the compile button. What you can do is just, the workflow we want is you just leave the editor open and just leave it open and do your work in Visual Studio or Xcode. And as you build in Xcode, the editor will just kind of pick up on the changes and you'll see those changes take. That's kind of the workflow that we're working towards. So Robert's team, the core team, is working on that right now, and it's seeming very promising. So I'm very excited about that. Other things going on, we have the parallel rendering work.
Yeah, lots of
I don't know,
questions about that.
Maybe Dan talked about that last week. I'm not sure if he did.
I'm not sure
I didn't
if
see
he
the video
did.
yet, but I just wanted to mention, so 4.3 actually has the beginnings of the parallel rendering effort. Parallel rendering is basically much faster, or much less CPU burden for the rendering system by parallelizing the construction of static draw lists on as many threads as makes sense for the platform that you're on. And then also, on platforms that support it, like DX12 or PS4, and I think maybe Metal, actually submitting the draw calls in parallel too. So we're expecting to see very nice gains in rendering performance, both GPU and CPU with that.
And this is actually parallelizing the render thread itself. Like UE4 already has a separate render thread from the game thread, but currently, the render thread is itself kind of monolithic. And so this work is figuring out how we can break that work up so that, it takes advantage of more cores.
Right, so we're taking our multi-threaded renderer and making it basically
More
super multi-threaded. So that's in heavy development now too. So, but the first version is in 4.3. It's not turned on yet. It's still in progress, but we're making strides toward that. So that's a big important thing that we're doing. I also want to mention, okay, so in the latest marketplace, you can see the preview of, was it Mountains, Landscape Mountains or something?
Yeah, you can see a preview thumbnail.
Preview thumbnail,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's a,
it's coming.
yeah, I don't know exactly when it's coming. I know it's being worked on, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that will be our first example of kind of large world tech in the engine. We talked about 2 weeks ago when I was on, we talked about the new world composition feature that's available in 4.3 that lets you make ginormous kind of environments and sort of make maps and place maps on a kind of larger world map, and then the engine will handle loading things and unloading things and
rebasing as you move
rebasing to deal with precision and LED and stuff like that. So this is another very important initiative, and so 4.3 has the beginnings of kind of the official support for that, and we hope to get you a sample that demonstrates that really well really soon. So more about that to hear, but that's also that's part of something that we'll be working on throughout the whole year, is improving and adding cool features for large worlds. I think that's all I had for like kind of cool stuff right now to share. So maybe do you want to?
Yeah, sure. We can hop over into some of the community-centric stuff. So if we can pull the browser back over here,
Sure.
and if you need me to take over and drive, I can. Wanted to point out one cool thing we spotted on our Answer Hub. If you need Visual Studio help or assistance, thank you very much, Mike. Our friend Dave, who is a tech evangelist at Microsoft, has posted an Answer Hub that if you sign up with BizSpark, he might be able to give you a hand with that. So we just wanted to point that out because we thought that was a really useful thread. In addition, in case you missed it, the guys over at Lionhead released a really cool video of LPV in action, so you can kind of see the latest there. You just go to fablelegends.com/news. It should be right at the top. So that's pretty awesome. There's crap. We'll have to come back to this. Okay, so there's a brand new Facebook group. Sorry, we didn't get to log in here. Let's see if I can find. Yeah, I don't know. All right. There's a brand new Facebook group, and if you go to facebook.com/groups/Unreal4, it's just a group it's just made up of developers. It's community run. It's all about helping each other. It's not about promoting projects. It's about development discussions. So if you go to facebook.com/groups/Unreal4. Sorry we were not logged into Facebook, but go there, join the group. I'm in there. I'm sure a lot of our developers will sign up as well. It'll be fun. All right, moving on. Ryan Shaw, as you may know, has his wonderful little free ebook. Just wanted to point out that he is also working on a cool new book that's on Indiegogo here. So if you like his work, consider supporting him. 2 other Kickstarter projects of note. Bacon Man.
Bacon Man. Nice.
Their Kickstarter just launched yesterday, I believe. So they are rallying for support, and so are the guys from Solarix. That also launched this week. So we wish those teams the best of luck. And
Cool.
let's see. Oh, yeah. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about events. We just got back from Develop in Brighton. It was an awesome conference, and James Golding gave a really great presentation on Unreal Engine 4 that sort of touched on, what we've learned and where we're going and what we're tackling next. So if you want to download those slides, they're available on unrealengine.com/resources. And this is the place where we really try to post all of our big presentations from GDC and other conferences like that. So if there's ever slides that, if there are ever presentations that we give somewhere and you want to find out if you can get them, feel free to bug us to put them up here, because we always mean to do it. Sometimes we just don't get around to it right away. Also of note, at Develop last week, we had a few indie games on our stand at Develop that were really cool. So this one, Cade, it looks really neat. They don't do a lot of self-promotion, but we think the game looks awesome, and people had a lot of fun playing it. So you can check them out on Facebook here at Cade Game.
Cool, that looks nice.
Yeah, it really does look good. So this guy, Justin, was with us. He's made this awesome cliff diving game for VR for Oculus. It's called Soar. Yeah, yeah.
Oh man, that looks like my worst nightmare.
Yeah, and he had it hooked up to the Razer Hydra and everything. It was, it's really cool. So I just wanted to give a little shout out to Justin. Red Awakening is a cool game, and it's actually part of the Square Enix Collective initiative. Red Awakening was with us last week. So definitely check them out. And then last but not least, of course, Skara, The Blade Remains. So we just wanted to say thanks to these teams for joining us at Develop. And there will be more opportunities for teams to come with us to other shows. In fact, at EGX London this September, we will be taking submissions for people to come and apply to get in our booth there. And here I just wanted to share a few photos from Develop. So here we have James Golding giving his talk, and Ollie with his Unreal Engine t-shirt. That's our Unreal Engine Classic logo. And this was a shot of our stand here. You can't really see the demo pods, but it was packed the entire time. Lots of fun. And so there's a little Bottle Rocket logo here because I wanted to mention our West Coast Dev Tour. It's happening next week. And on Monday, we'll be in Orange County. And, I actually got ahead of myself. I wanted to thank the people who hosted us last week. I'm sorry, my apologies. So last week, we've had a few meetups, right? So we went to Boston recently. Oh yeah, hang on, there we go. Yeah, we went to Boston recently, and then last week we were in Dallas and in Austin. And Bottle Rocket was nice enough to host us 2 days ago, and then so this is just a little bit about them. This is pulled from their LinkedIn page. And then last night we were at Chaotic Moon Studios in Austin. So Chaotic Moon is a brilliant studio, really cool people, and this is Chance, who has been working there for a while, and he's actually coming to work here at Epic. Okay. His first day is July 28th, so you'll be seeing a lot more of Chance. Andy Hess took this photo of him last night. So we would like to give a really big shout out to Chaotic Moon and to Chance for organizing a great event and for hosting us. So there will be lots more meetups all over the U.S. and in Europe and in Asia. And that brings us to the Dev Tour. And this is a little bit more of an organized effort where we put together, intense learning sessions and lectures with our development team. And usually there's some kind of a social component where people can come and just hang out. But they're really fun and casual and relaxed, and they're free. So we still have a little bit of room left for Monday. I know that's coming up soon, but if you're in the Orange County area and you want to attend, there's an Eventbrite link. You just click through. San Francisco, there is still some room left. This is a purely social event. Should be a lot of fun. I think the guys from Mixamo are going to come out and attend that, so you can chat with them. And then Seattle, love you guys, but we are sold out. All the seats have been filled. There's no room left. But we will be doing lots of events like this. We'll be coming back to Seattle, so don't worry if you've missed it this time.
So these events are I mean, we're just starting them up for UE4, but I mean, I kind of see how they'll work. Like, we're going to have a bunch of developers there.
Yeah.
Like guys from the team, girls from the team, and just hang out and talk and have some beers.
Yeah, we have lectures, and we encourage people to, if they want to bring demos of their games on their laptops and get feedback, and it's really pretty casual and open-ended. But
yeah, think of it kind of like a meetup kind of thing, where it's just people with common interests socializing, talking about in this case Unreal Engine.
Yeah, and the Dev Tour is like meet up with meet. Like meet on the like there's more like we're actually
Yes, exactly.
giving presentations and stuff. But yeah, we're doing tons of meetups. And I just want to point out, like, if we're not in your city yet and you want to mobilize people, you can totally do that. Like, don't feel like you have to wait on us. You can start up a group on meetup.com, or if there's a local IGDA group, you want to make sure people are talking about what you care about in terms of Unreal Engine, go for it and let us know about it. I mean, if we know about it well enough in advance, even though I'll take credit for being terrible at mailing out swag in the recent months, we'll try to hook you up with some stuff, even if it's just, little things that you can give away, or, maybe some signage, like that's the kind of thing that we're working on.
Yeah, and if we can get to it, we could, some of us might go.
Yeah, it's possible if we have enough lead time, or if
Sure.
we have people out in that area that, we can send somebody. So if we don't see something on our website, like either leave us feedback or go for it yourself. I mean, there was even recently somebody started up a meetup about a Swiss get together, and I think that they held an event already, which is really cool, right? So it doesn't matter where you are. We really do want to get behind you, even if we can't be there in person. All right, trying to think if there's anything else we need to cut over to here on the screen. All right, I'm just going to cover off on a few quick sort of marketing-related items. A lot of people have asked how you can use the Unreal Engine logo in your game. Like, are you required to use it for a splash screen, or can you get the animated logo? And so I'm just going to lay out a little bit of that here. You're absolutely not required to use our logo. You're welcome to use it. One of the things that we've been trying to do since launch is get together a little logo pack for everybody that includes the trademark license that you need from us. So that's getting finished right now. And we're going to have that up, posted either on Answer Hub, but we'll link to it from all over the place. But it will have the trademark license that you need to complete so that you can use our logo legally. It will have the logo pack. And then if you ever have questions about how you're using our branding, for example, we're cool with people doing a creative treatment to the UE4 logo. Like, if you saw the Tekken 7 trailer, you saw how awesome that looked.
Really cool.
It totally fit in with our branding, and we love that. But if you have questions about how it's being used, we've set up a new email alias. It's branding@unrealengine.com. And that hits me, and it will hit people on the marketing team as we grow, so that we can help answer questions. So we haven't published that anywhere yet, but it's branding@unrealengine.com. So how do you get us to promote your games? There's obviously the work in progress forum on the thread on the forums. We're also, as you know, very active on Twitter. So anytime you want us to help like retweet something, you can give us a shout out at Unreal Engine. This is especially useful when you're announcing your game, you're releasing trailers, demos, shipping your game, or putting your game on sale. And if you're not super active on Twitter, we actually have an email alias, and we monitor it as much as we can, and we do as much as we can with it. It's unreal-promotion@epicgames.com. Unreal-promotion@epicgames.com. And that's mostly used internally, but I mean, we want you guys to have as many tools as possible to get in touch with us. So that hits me and also people on our team. And we will try our best to get your project, exposed on our social channels that way. And then, of course, there are always other opportunities like showcases and coming with us to events and stuff.
Yep.
I think we need a blog post about all this. It's like
I
a lot
know.
of stuff to remember here.
All right, there's something else for me to write.
Yeah.
I will get right on it. Don't worry. But yeah, anyways, I will post this in the forum thread after we're done here. We're also active on Instagram, so if you give us a shout out at Unreal Engine on Instagram, we're on there. You can also send us cool images that we can throw up there on our own channel. That's always fun. We're on Facebook. You can tag us. You can like Unreal Engine and tag us in your post, or you can post on our wall, or you can send us messages. I think that covers all the ways to get in touch with us.
Cool. Yeah, so I guess like the main thing is like we're able to help you, make your game successful.
Yeah.
There's tons of ways that, we have lots of levers that we can pull, and we're not like this scary evil fortress of
Yeah.
Epic that is totally unreachable or untouchable. Like you just email us directly and we get the emails, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's the main thing. Cool.
Yeah, pretty much open book. Some people, last thing for me, so a lot of folks have asked, how can I get Unreal Engine merch and swag and those fun t-shirts? Well, we have been, we have to juggle our inventory between what we take to events and all that good stuff, but we're finally populating the Epic Games Store. And it's at epicgamestore.com. And the first thing we're going to stock is that Unreal Engine Classic logo, that gray t-shirt you saw in the previous picture, and also the shit just got unreal, for those who want it. We had that at GDC. I don't have a picture of it handy. And a lot of folks have asked about the cat shirt, the orange t-shirt that says available meow. Well, we can't sell that design because we didn't come up with business cat, and our legal department they're just being meanies about it. Not really, they're just, they're doing their jobs. But we do have a new special giveaway that we're going to make. Jason, you can cut over to the screen now. Introducing the new business cat, Get It Meow.
That's Rummy, I think, right?
Oh yeah. Nice.
And then the back of it is Unreal Dev, Ask Me Anything. So that'll be one, we can't sell it, but we can give it away. So when when you're posting your questions and we read them out loud here on the stream, or, you're making awesome tutorials, things like that, that's one of the shirts that we might be able to send to you. All right, so that's my bit.
There's one more picture there. Do we want to put that up?
That was the Ask Me Anything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Should we go to questions?
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, I
Oh
held
yeah,
it
he
up
tried
earlier.
to.
Yeah.
Talking about showing Paper 2D running on the
Yep.
on the iPad. All right, cool.
Let me get my question.
Okay, start
down.
populating the chat stream now. I've been trying to copy and paste as we go, so I'm going to go back through and hit Control F for question. But I know I didn't get everything, so we'll try.
You can also just
Oh.
ask questions right now, right? So,
Yeah. Oh, I got a
if
good one
If we
already.
see one that looks fun.
Yeah, from InMaster64. What's the current status of the Twitch chat integration feature?
Oh,
Well,
sure.
let's just talk about the Twitch integration, because I know you talked about it a little bit last week, but
I
or
did
the
a
week
whole
before.
Twitch demo last week.
Yeah.
Or 2 weeks ago. So you can
So
see
go
it on,
back and
you can
watch
see it
that
on
on YouTube.
Okay, so the status of the integration is it's in 4.4, not 4.3, but you can access it in GitHub now. But it's not finished yet. It's really still kind of a work in progress. Basically, what you saw in the demo 2 weeks ago works. So the implementation of chat, like intercepting chat messages and sending chat messages, isn't implemented yet. There's some weirdness with authentication that requires you to kind of have things set up a certain way that I'm working with the Twitch guys to address. So there's a few things that are like still a little bit rough, but I'm hoping it will be in 4.4. We're actually still waiting on the legal department to sort things out for that. But even if I can't legally distribute it in 4.4, what I'll do is I'll distribute all the code we wrote. So you'll have the whole integration, you'll have the plugin, and what you'll have to do is just drop in the SDK and use the GitHub build to use the feature. So you'll still have the feature even if we legally aren't allowed to distribute it to you, just because we can distribute our code and you can go get the SDK and read about the SDK's terms yourself.
Yeah, kind of the same way Steam works right now.
Yep. So that's you'll definitely have something in 4.4, and you have something now in GitHub if you go to the master branch. And we're just going to keep improving it probably all throughout next week until and the week after. As we head towards the 4.4 launch. I mean, at some point we'll do a preview of what's coming in 4.4 once it gets a little closer, and and we'll talk about it more then. Cool.
Cool. Michael, what should we be looking for when deciding whether sprite imposters are worth using for a given application?
So you're talking about the sprite imposters, like the stuff that Ryan Brooks did, I'm guessing?
Yeah, it sounds like it.
So that's one of those things where it's really going to depend on the circumstances and where you're bound, like CPU versus GPU, and on specific platforms as well. So for example, one of the use cases that Ryan was playing around with that originally for is doing skyboxes in Fortnite. So it's something where, it's really distant geometry. You can never get close to it, so you can never get at like one of the bad angles for an imposter where it's clear that it's just a 2D card. So that way you can get really complicated looking geometry off in the distance without having to pay to render, really heavy duty meshes, and hundreds or thousands of instances of them, in the perimeter of a level. So like that's a kind of good application, but as with anything, it's a trade-off. You've got more texture memory potentially that could be much larger than the actual original mesh was in the first place. So it's just a case-by-case basis thing.
I want to answer real quick. I saw a question someone asked. Will there be nav mesh support for large worlds? Currently it doesn't work with streaming or foliage. That's something that we've seen quite a few requests for, and is something that we do want to work on. We don't know when it will be coming, but it's totally on our list where we want navigation to be more friendly toward whatever type of crazy environment you want to build. And we definitely want to work with streaming, so we'll get to that.
Yep. One other quick thing about the imposter stuff is that Ryan's blueprints are actually checked into the engine directory in 4.3, so you can go in there, play around with them.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if there's a lot of documentation on them yet, though.
Yep. More questions, Dana?
Yeah, what's the best way to modify the details panel in a blueprint?
So the details panel in a blueprint, you can, anything in C++ for those base types will happen in that blueprint. So like if you have custom types for your game, you can go ahead and do a details panel customization and register that with the details module, and that'll show up in the blueprint editor. Currently there's not a way in blueprints to write like a details panel customization, so you can't customize it there. You have some level of control over instances. So you can say this property should be public or private, and you can adjust the category on the property so that you get sort of the basic level of customization, but you can't like do custom slate widgets or anything like that in the details panel right now directly from the blueprint. There's a couple cool things about like the categorization. Like once you make a category using the details panel at the bottom, you can just drag and drop properties to put them in a particular category and that sort of stuff.
HTML5.
When is it coming to the launcher? Is that
Yeah.
the one? I saw that one too. Probably not for a while yet. It's still not really, so that platform is still in preview form, meaning, it works. Obviously, you can go to and play Tappy Chicken right now in the browser, and if you grab the GitHub build, you can compile your application to JavaScript and run it under WebGL conditionally. The platform isn't quite finished yet. Like it's working, but it's not up to our standards to say that we officially support it. So the platform team is working hard on it, and as soon as it's ready, it'll be ready for the binary build. But it's not yet, and I don't think it's planned for the next release either. But maybe not too far after that.
Yeah, we're actually really close to having a strategy game ready to be hosted.
In the browser?
Yeah,
Okay, nice.
yeah, like
Awesome.
it's working pretty well, but now we've got to get all the web stuff ready for it. And because of all the web stuff our team is doing, it's like we're trying to figure out where to fit it in.
Right.
Yeah, but strategy game, we've been working with Mozilla to get that up and running because we know that we really need to publish another 3D application.
Yeah, to show sort of the spectrum of stuff you can do with
Yeah, because that's what all the browsers have been using to move forward.
Yep.
So, yep, we're definitely working on that too.
Yep.
Cool. People are asking about platformer game and when we might release that. I mean, I think, probably sometime this fall, would you say? Maybe?
I think it's
I
done,
thought it
isn't
was slotted for sometime for 4.3.
Yeah.
I wanted
Is
to
it?
say. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I don't
'Cause
know.
I've
either.
heard
I
that
think
for
Dana,
4.2
you
as
better than
well,
me.
We'll
so-
have to
But
look at that.
it looks
Yeah.
pretty done to me the last time I played it, so
Yes.
we should release it.
Yeah, I think there was like a packaging issue because it has a plug-in inside of it.
Oh,
Like,
right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think that may have been resolved now. But
It
not
has
100% sure.
a IK feature, right?
Yeah,
A
it
special
shows off
IK
how to do
feature.
foot IK and also how to extend. This is kind of in the same way we were talking about with Paper 2D. It shows off how you can do a custom animation node, entirely in your
Right.
game without having to edit in the engine code.
Yeah.
It's kind of an unexpected sample of something.
Yeah.
Though. Cool. What else?
Is there news on the blueprint snippet paste tool?
Oh gosh, I know that. I think we're trying to get that in for 4.4.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's all coming together. I think there's just getting all the back end server stuff, all the ducks in a row for that, because we want it to kind of work out of the box without you having to do any kind of crazy setup. So, and it's going to be pretty cool, I think. But yeah, maybe next week we can talk more about that because I think we could probably put together an updated demo of it.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yep.
Yeah. Sweet. All right. There was one that.
The blueprint snippet tool, by the way, lets you basically draw a box in the blueprint editor and copy that to a clipboard in the cloud, and then you can share that by pasting a URL to your friends, or you can just use it as a buffer to store it, and paste it in other projects or other blueprints.
So it's basically a paste bin for blueprint code,
Yep.
effectively.
It's pretty fun, and it will deal with a lot of the keeping all of your nodes intact and all that stuff for you.
Yep. Should work a lot better than trying to peer at a low-res screenshot and figure out exactly what kind of node that is.
All right. Is there any work being done to get indies access to Simply Gone? I know that we're working with Simply Gone on a lot of stuff,
Well,
related to.
I'm pretty sure you can get Simply Gone. Is we want included version? That's probably what their request is for something. Back in UDK3, we had a version of Simply Gone included.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
We weren't able to do that for UE4 yet, so that's something I guess we can keep talking about.
Yeah, yeah. We are trying to.
Yep.
I know. Talk with them about options.
I don't have any news though on it. It's certainly fully support it in UE4, but you have to get it through Simply Gone and then drop it in. I believe it currently requires the GitHub version to drop it in.
Yeah, there are code changes to enable the LOD support and stuff like that. Or not the LOD support, but the the details and stuff like that in properties and static meshes, that kind of
I
stuff.
see. Well, we wanted to address that, so it should just be able to be a normal plugin.
Exactly, because that also allow other, you can make an arbitrary LOD solution. So
When can we expect the upgrade to 32 texture samplers?
32 texture samplers? I don't know. That would have been a great question for Daniel last
Yeah.
I'm not sure actually.
Okay, no worries.
Maybe just ask on Answer Hub.
Sorry,
or on the
Mons
forums.
Olympus. Yeah, please ask on the Answer Hub.
Yep.
There was one I just saw. I just lost it. It's a thing.
I want to say it's something like the SM5 actually supports 32 textures, but only 16. It's 32 or 56 textures, but only 16 texture samplers. So currently the two are coupled in the engine. So I think it's actually a non-trivial change to raise that limit.
Hey, someone asked for Paper 2D. Do you plan on making an isometric sample game?
That's something definitely interested in working on. It'll probably be after we have more tile map support in the engine. So currently tile map support only supports orthogonal tile maps, but I'd like to add support for isometric tile maps as well. So once we have that level of support, it would be a lot easier to build out an isometric sample game. You could do that right now with just diagonal sprites, you make sort of the diamond shaped sprites, and then position them yourself or make a custom grid component or something. But it's not something that's just turnkey at the moment. But in general, we want to have lots of sample content, tutorials, documentation.
Definitely.
all that kind of stuff for Paper 2D. But it's early days yet.
Yep.
Weapons pack. People have asked about that.
Oh,
Do you
gosh.
know? I actually don't know.
I don't know the status of it. That's been in the marketplace for a long time, hasn't it? We want to get that out there.
Yeah.
I think it's basically as soon as we can start charging money in the marketplace,
Yeah.
that content would be up
that's
there.
supposed to be paid content. So
Okay.
I think that was the plan for it. But
Well, that leads us into the marketplace question because people are asking about marketplace and the status of that. We're working to bring commerce, just as fast as we can. As you know, we want to, eventually be able to sell anything from plugins to assets to tutorials, you name it, right?
I think it's pretty much the online team's top priority right now. Like
Yep.
that's what they've been working towards. So like they got PayPal support up, and now they're on to real money transactions in the marketplace and stuff.
yeah, probably the first version, you'll have to send it to us and we'll host it and get it in there. But eventually,
Yeah. It'll
we'll
be
have-
highly curated at first.
Yeah.
While we
Right.
get, it's baby steps.
But we're
It looks
definitely
like the
we want to
weapons
head
pack-
towards where you can it's self-service. So you can submit content to the asset store, the
Yeah.
marketplace, and be able to manage all that yourself. But first steps won't be quite that far.
Yeah, we're working towards it. It's super important to us. It's just kind of like one of many things that we're doing. I actually started a forum thread last week or the week before last, about just kind of getting,
Plugins and stuff.
just the community's feedback about how we'd like plugins to look when they're on a marketplace, and you're able to publish your own and share it, and whether source code is important to you, and how to deal with versioning compatibility. These are very, interesting problems that we talk about a lot here, and there's not always a clear solution so just getting everyone's feedback is really important to me. So if you have some, there's on that engine source subforum, there's a thread about this stuff that I'd love your feedback.
Oh, here's a good one. Our community made example projects like the sci-fi hallway released under the same license as Epic's content, or are we not allowed to use that in our own projects? So far, it's been under the same license.
Yeah.
Like
That's
for
right.
Quixel's project, you can use all those assets. I don't know if it'll always be that way, especially since some stuff is going to be paid from now on. But at least for the foreseeable future, everything that we're releasing for free to people, it's fair game.
I think we'll always still release free stuff too.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah,
don't,
yeah,
don't
Don't think that
misunderstand.
just because we're going to some paid stuff that everything is paid going forward. We'll
Yeah.
still release cool free stuff.
Right. But yeah, there will probably end up being different licenses for different kinds of content, and
Yeah.
whenever we get to that point, we'll make sure it's extremely clear, before you spend any money at all, like what license you would be getting this content under, and so it'll range from completely free like CC0 assets, up to like you have potentially even something like you have this for this particular game, but all of that's to be determined in the future.
Yeah. And we had a question about blueprint compile times. Are they being improved?
Right. Basically, Blueprint.
I want to say that there were some compile and load improvements that went. I don't think they went into 4.3. I think they were being done contemporaneously, so they'll be in 4.4. But it's something I know the Blueprints team is definitely focusing on, is continuing to improve compile times and then also iteration time within the tool. Just like if you have a really large blueprint, making sure that graph updates and stuff like that are more efficient as well.
Last time I talked to Mr. Nick Whiting about this, which was recently, I think that they thought that there was quite a bit of low-hanging fruit still in the
Right.
Blueprint compile. That I think probably they're asking about the interactive compile when you click the button.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, it's one of those things where they've been more focused on features and stability
Yep.
for a long time, so there hasn't really been a big push for performance, but that's coming up soon.
Yep.
So,
Does Paper 2D support multiple layers or parallax?
not natively right now, so everything that you make in Paper 2D is placed directly in the world, so it's just like a 3D component, and so you could do something like attach a bunch of different pieces to a single scene component and then move that scene component around based on the relative position of the camera to simulate parallax. But I've got some ideas I want to play around with where that might be handled more on the render thread, where you can just basically assign something a parallax layer ID or something, and then basically say, oh, for this layer, I want it to be offset by a certain amount, and easily manage that kind of stuff without having to monkey around with hierarchies of components. But that hasn't happened yet, and probably won't happen for 4.4 either. So right now, just the scene component approach is the best way to go.
Cool. Someone asked about large world support, and if we're how we're handling floating point precision. The current version, this is something that we may change in the future, but the current version, as the viewer moves around, we do shift the whole world and recenter it such that it feels like to the user like nothing has moved, but basically as you move around, the world is coming to you, so that we're making maximum use of around the 4K by 4K area where physics and gameplay works really good at in single precision floating point. So that's how it works right now. In the future, we may have more elaborate system because we want it to be more multiplayer friendly. The current large world system will work great for multiplayer as long as the players are roughly kind of near each other. Like, near as in like miles, not near as in like planets. But eventually we want to be able to support games that have very, very huge worlds and hugely scaled multiplayer.
Where the players can be anywhere within the environment as opposed to having to be, roughly within a tile of each other.
So that's a limitation of the current system, but we're going to work on it. But if you're thinking of grabbing 4.3 and making a massively multiplayer game using the large world technology, it's just something to be aware of. It does not handle. It's not designed in its current state for players on disparate ends of the world to both be simulating physics and gameplay on the server. So, but that's something that we're gonna work on. It's part of, like I said, throughout the year we're gonna keep working on the large world initiative, and we're gonna deal with that one. So we will support it.
Yeah. We've had a question about Blender support. In case people missed it, we actually made a contribution to the Blender Foundation.
Oh, yeah.
I believe it was the week of July 4th.
Cool.
It was, yeah. So we're working really closely with those guys, and you'll see more information about that up on our channels. But we're trying to streamline that pipeline because we know that Blender is a really awesome tool, and a lot of people use it.
Yeah, and I think the 2.71 release or something like that had improved FBX support in general in Blender that makes it work better with importing.
Yeah, cool. Do we want to just touch on the status of sequencers since people always ask about it?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sequencer, as for people who don't know, is kind of our next generation cinematics and actor and blueprint animation tool. It's also being used as part of Unreal Motion graphics. So it will be what powers kind of the animation of widgets in your 2D screens. So most of the focus on development in Sequencer is geared toward Unreal Motion graphics, since that's a big project that's underway right now. And we have Matinee already, and we'll continue to have Matinee as long as everyone decides we still want to keep it, probably a long time, as an option for animating objects in the 3D world. So basically the roadmap is we're going to get Sequencer to a point where it's awesome for Unreal Motion graphics, which is this kind of a subset of functionality that you'd need for full-blown cinematics authoring in the 3D world. And we'll get that really polished and get Unreal Motion graphics out there, and then transition back to Sequencer and focus on kind of delivering that kind of super awesome nonlinear collaborative tool for making huge cinematics. Or things as simple as opening a door. You can do all kinds of things with it. I don't know. I think we've maybe talked a little bit about Sequencer before and how it works, so I won't go into detail. There'll be lots more to hear about it over the next while. But so the rough order of things, though, is Unreal Motion graphics is a bigger priority, and Sequencer kind of benefits from that work. So you'll see bits of it get better automatically if you tried to use the kind of prototype version that's in the engine now, as UMG gets better. So it's kind of what's going on with Sequencer. I'm really excited about Sequencer. It's one of my favorite. I worked on the design for that for a long time with Matt Kohlenschmidt and the others on the tools team, and it's a really awesome tool. When we finally get it ready for prime time, it's going to be pretty amazing what it can do.
Yeah, and it's a lot more modular than Matinee ever was, and so it's designed that we can actually host it into other applications within Unreal and customize it for those particular uses. So we're doing that already with UMG as sort of the first customer, but it's something that we're also thinking about doing where you can edit potentially animations in Persona or do sprite-based animations in the flipbook editor and all that kind of stuff using sort of all the expressive power of UMG. So really looking forward to it.
Cool.
Yep.
We had some questions about plans for AI tutorials or content examples. I know it's probably a good question for Ori. I don't know if you guys know.
I don't know the plans. I'm sure we'll do them, right? Like certainly behavior tree tutorials and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think Mishko was actually working on like an AI sample test map. Like
Oh, awesome.
I think
Oh,
he
yeah,
started
that's
out
cool.
as really more of an asset for QA so that they can be testing the stuff. But I think he was thinking about actually turning that into something that we'd release just to
Right.
show off sort of,
I think he showed a little bit of that on one of the when we had him and Ori on the live stream. I think he
Okay.
showed just a little bit of that. Maybe we could talk to him and see if
Yeah,
we could
we
get
should
that.
follow up, and I know there's a lot of interest in AI tools and examples. So behavior tree is still experimental in 4.3, but we're hoping it will graduate to just being on by default in 4.4.
Yeah.
We're talking about that today, actually. So, and it has undergone a ton of improvements just in the last month. So
huge number of improvements to like the
Yep.
UI and stuff like that. Because like the core runtime is actually pretty solid already, I would say.
yep, yeah, we've been using it for a long time on Fortnite.
Yep.
Cool.
Well, it looks like we're about out of time.
Okay.
Unless you guys, if there's anything else pressing you want to cover.
We have nothing right now. I don't
Okay.
think. Good.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for your questions this week. If we didn't get to your question today, please feel free to post it in the forum thread or repost it next week, and we'll try to get to it then. All right. So we'll see you next Thursday at 2:00.
Okay, thanks.
Lots
Bye,
more cool
everybody.
new stuff. Thanks, everybody.